A girl from my hometown won an island on a Mr. Beast video. It was worth millions. She's in the process of selling it currently. Until that money comes through, she's just living life like normal. I imagine that must be a great place to be in, knowing most of your problems are about to disappear but not yet overly intoxicated by money. He started studying solar technology in '88 and now owns a solar installation company in Texas and one in California. He employs close to 200 people. I don't know how rich he is, but I'm really familiar with where he came from and what he overcame to do it all. The guy was constantly reading and tinkering with anything solar related, even when we were in high school. Lecturer of mine rode the IT wave at exactly the right time and had a damn fine head for business. He was a workaholic at age 30, started a business offering remote tech support, which was a new idea at the time, signed on some super big clients who were enamored of the idea, and built a giganto house from the proceeds that pissed everyone off. Sold the business and then died of a heart attack at 45 or so though. So, yeah. There can be complications. Smart guy. A little socially awkward but was a swimmer and in top classes. Went to UCLA, became a doctor, maybe a surgeon. Started to play the stock market for fun. Ran a bulletin board to talk stocks. Turns out he had Asperger and was able to read the stock market signs really well. Made $300 million when the market crashed as he bet against it. Christian Bale played him in the movie about him, The Big Short. Mike Burry. Class of 1989. We knew each other. Not friends but acquainted. Couldn't be happier for the guy. Truly, happy he's done well. Not seen him since we graduated. If I did, I'd totally, and jokingly, ask him for some cash. I'd try to make him laugh. He'd probably still be awkward. Big-time stoner who I always thought was a lazy scumbag who would never amount to anything. He went on to start one of America's most successful marijuana edible companies. Classy billboard ads in multiple cities. My mom bought their CBD gummies for a while. Every year he donates millions of dollars of his company's profits to bail funds for people of color who've been arrested for marijuana possession. He is more successful and has done more objective good for the world than I ever have or will. Turns out I was a bitter judgmental loser in high school. He worked on a milk delivery before school, paper route after school, and frugal. Bought a small van and began doing deliveries, eventually upgrading to a truck. Acquired warehouses and was paid by a parent company for storage, deliveries and logistics on every pallet, thousands of pallets as items were bulky. Still working away, I worked on the warehouse floor for 5 years. Lovely guy. This question reminds me of one of my childhood friends. He had a head start as his dad was a doctor and mother owned the only jewelry store in town, so he didn't have a poor childhood. I hadn't thought about him in years and decided to check the tax records for his name for the likely towns he probably now lives. This is public information here. Found him from the 4th town I checked. Based on the tax he pays, he's making $200K/year working in sales for US-based company, according to LinkedIn, while the national average is $40K here. I think that's good example of generational wealth, combined with some hard work. Some girl named Rose. Her parents were well off already. What they did for work. They had a big house near the water. 3 dogs. They were really nice. A little artificial some would say, but anyway, her parents were really strict. She was forced to play piano, violin and oboe and was always taking lessons. We had gymnastics together when we were little. She had skipped kindergarten and went straight to 1st grade. Always had good grades. Valedictorian. She was pretty good at drawing even from a young age. At recess she would just sit under a tree and draw. I think her mom owned an art studio. Or her dad. She was a goody two-shoes. She got into the cosplay scene and dressed up as scantily clad video game characters. She had a bit of a hoe phase. Dressed more revealing and posted pics of her out dancing and drinking. She did some traveling and settled down. She went to some fancy art school. Created her own fashion line. Nothing big from the looks of it. But she really was on her grind because she moved to New York and is a senior designer for Coach now. He started buying and selling used cars, moved to higher-end cars, then buying and selling limos, started a limo rental company while still selling limos, sold the rental company. Sells high-end limos and Sprinter vans and exotic cars now. The other friend started in car sales in high school, stayed with the company during and after college, is now a sales manager for said company at one of their higher-end stores. Invested wisely and loans his own money out at 15% as well as some real estate investing. Friends with both of them still. Big-time stoner who I always thought was a lazy scumbag who would never amount to anything. He went on to start one of America's most successful marijuana edible companies. Classy billboard ads in multiple cities. My mom bought their CBD gummies for a while. Every year he donates millions of dollars of his company's profits to bail funds for people of color who've been arrested for marijuana possession. He is more successful and has done more objective good for the world than I ever have or will. Turns out I was a bitter judgmental loser in high school. Did vocational high school, which is the lowest education in my country next to mentally disabled education. Most kids end up as a cleaning woman, a factory worker or doing volunteer work while getting supported by disability benefits like me. Now there's this one kid who got very rich after he left high school. He has a huge farmhouse, expensive cars, and he all achieved this by starting a company where he sells expensive horse breeds on his farm. His parents were also rich, so I think that's also a good start, but he managed to pay most of it by himself and became a businessman. One of my friends made an AI that changes the stadium advertisement boards to whatever the TV company wants on the fly. Basically those advertisements will be different for one stream vs another. They also have another software that can show the game footage from perspective of the players, a rendering. Another friend has made a company that makes hip joint implants. His parents were super smart and very artsy. He and his father built their own computer when he was maybe 10 in 1976 from a kit. He was an appealing outgoing guy, but also super smart. He went to an Ivy League college in New England, his brother followed a year later. We lost touch, but he moved to the West Coast, founded a couple of super tech software companies, sold them. Did that a few times. He's not rich, he is wealthy. Knows Gavin Newsom personally level. It was me. The short version is that my school outlawed junk food and the very next day I was selling hot chips and cold drinks out of a couple of Eskies in my locker. Seriously, my profit margins were absolutely stupid. I'd pick up a whopping great bag from the local fish and chips shop and sell it back in smaller ones. Only took me 2 sales to break even. Ended up buying my first car with the proceeds of that operation with plenty left over. Believe it or not, a guy in my class made a fortune by inventing a revolutionary device called the snooze-o-matic. You know how some people just can't get up in the morning? Well, my genius classmate created a device that gently tickles your nose with a feather until you wake up. It's like having a mischievous butler in bed. It became an instant hit and now they are swimming in feather-filled money. He was a bit strange, but always talked about money. His parents didn't believe in banks, so they would put their money in silver. Turns out his family was all lawyers and doctors except for his parents, so they influenced him to keep going with his degrees, and eventually he got his doctorate in music. Okay, I thought, what a waste. Nope. He went on to teach at that college and get his entire cost of tuition paid for by them. He then went and took his LCAT and got a near-perfect score and was given a free ride to one of the more expensive law schools. I don't remember what one, but it's all small classes, and now he works for a very expensive law firm. His dad gave him a restaurant, which he ran for approximately 6 months, then he did non-consensual stuff with a minor who worked at said restaurant, so his dad sold the restaurant and just gave him the money from the sale and disowned him, removed him from the will. Still walked away with probably $400,000 to $500,000 in his pocket, no strings attached. Probably lost out on a $10 million will, though. Kept his head down, built his company, worked his ass off double triple time, sold it for hundreds of millions at the age of 24. Bought a brand new house in a neighborhood that was still being constructed, showing off his Bentley and Teslas while the rest of us were renting a room and working our first jobs. Knew he was going to be successful ever since a kid, good at everything, sports, video games. This kid was just fucking good at it on top of his hard work and his business-savvy parents. He was one of my best friends. He liked doing stunts and filming movies, parkour stuff, etc. I laughed when he said he wanted to be a stuntman when he got older, but little did I know that he would get a stuntman-esque job at age 21 which would launch him into making home movies, and those movies got him onto American Ninja Warrior, and by his appearances on American Ninja Warrior, and considering the popularity of the show, he secured loans to open up a gym to teach parkour. Now he runs and operates half a dozen ninja training gyms, and he makes shitloads of money teaching kids to jump off of walls and run obstacle courses. Dude is raking it in. Also, the person who got really rich? She harped and harped at people to get invested in Bitcoin in like 2013 or whenever it was just becoming known to the public. She hasn't worked a day in almost 7 years. All she does is photography and live in Costa Rica. A girl I went to university with who was in environmental science became one of the first members of Shopify when it began. She originally began with the company because she wanted to buy a specific breed of dog. Within a month of launching her online store, she had enough to buy 3 dogs, and by the end of the summer she had enough to buy 10 dogs. She managed to capture a very niche market making t-shirts that were queer-themed. Remember when American Apparel had to legalize gay t-shirts? Very that. She was also insanely talented at graphic design as a hobby. Her store did so well she began managing their digital marketing platforms and eventually sold her company. No idea how much for, but it was a lot. I think whoever bought the company rebranded it to something else. I believe she's an app developer now and works/lives remotely in Europe. She wrote a blog a long time ago and published it, which was featured in a lot of magazines about her journey from rags to riches. She was actually never poor, she grew up in a very wealthy family, and she was already insanely talented at graphic design, but her blog was great for the company because their stocks flew through the roof as people were out trying to do what she did. She got out of that market once it got oversaturated. Smart girl. Baby, he was born that way. I grew up in rural Maine. The rich person in my class had a grandfather, maybe great-grandfather, that did something like patenting steam engines back in the day and was richer than anyone by a scale that was beyond belief. My parents were a carpenter, dad, an elementary art teacher, mom, and he was his best friends with my brother for a while. My brother came back from his house with wild stories every time, like Nickelodeon Wild. As in, he would like race go-karts with this kid on a course he owned where there were stops to shoot crossbows as targets, or don't stop and just shoot them while driving, and like that was a casual Friday after school. He had an elevator in his house, and a basement where he had his kid play area with a pool and hot tub and whole cinema-style theater. Ick why I wrote all that, but it's crazy that someone can grow up in that and meanwhile everyone else I knew was lucky to have a fire pit. Previous guy also had the basic glorious things, that we could sit around. Anyway. She became a Twitch streamer after trying to be a YouTuber and was the most watched Latina streamer until she got banned for 2 years and came back. She also married another big streamer before he got super famous. Yes, she used that squeaky voice all the time and wore those skimpy outfits every day. She is the same person before and after fame. The difference is that she was a lot more quieter in school. She was already rich too, she just became richer. Started an OnlyFans about 2019-ish. And from her Facebook, she's doing real well for herself. Rich? I don't know, but not lacking for anything, at least from what her Facebook shows. The other person bought Bitcoin back around 2011, I think, don't quote me, for like $1 or some shit like that. Anyways, he dumped a bunch when it was around 60K, again, I think, and was filthy rich from it. Spent all the money on jack shit and OD'd on heroin, leaving behind his wife and 2 kids. OnlyFans. I don't know how much she makes, but she lives in a very wealthy area and drives a very expensive car. I became aware of her work because she was Facebook friend suggested to me. I looked at her page and she was not overly shy about it. She worked also on Babe Station a number of years ago. A TV channel in the UK where girls take phone calls and perform. This I believe was pre-OnlyFans. I do not believe she has done any porn beyond this. Yes, I looked. Curiosity is a strong motive. Yes, I have checked some of her content, and while she isn't ugly, she is also not what I would call more than just attractive. Certainly better looking girls offering paid for content, but she has made it work. I have a homie who set his entire family up for life through Bitcoin. He started investing when we were like 12 and no one knew what Bitcoin was. Got his parents to do all the investing for him, he just mowed lawns to save money. Crazy to think that he worked for a handful of hours when he was a preteen and has never had to work again since. He's a DJ and producer in Tampa now, and he lives a modest life even though he has generations and generations of wealth put away. The same way every rich person in my class did it. Their parents were lawyers/business owners, so they've never worked for anything and went to college for computer science and just monitor servers/game all day and make over 6 figures. They never had any debt from school or anything and stay in their parents' giant home, so there's no bills. They all 3 have about $1 million at 30. I know 3 different guys with this exact story. On the flip side, my friend who grew up with nothing worked 2 jobs his whole life since 15 years old while in school, just got out of his school debt at 28, so now he gets to start from zero. Woohoo. No matter the situation, rich people have the biggest advantages to make things easy for them but will act like they went through the same fire you did. I became a real estate agent while in senior year of high school and started making adult money before I graduated. I was that guy and everyone hated me for being proactive and getting a start on my real life. Just 'cause I can buy myself a new car and a house when you're still dependent on your parents to pay your rent and tuition, that makes me the stupid one? Fuck everyone I went to high school with. Maybe not rich, but well off. Went from poor to wealthy and famous. He got kicked out of our scene for doing shitty things like stealing the tips we'd leave for servers and stealing our band equipment and whatever else he got his hands on, then selling it for weed money for himself and to sell. He got accused of raping a girl and stealing from her. He ran himself out of town. He moved to Brooklyn. He started doing hair, got connected with the ASAP mob, and then Kanye. He did modeling for Kanye and then got into modeling for high fashion magazines. Dude now just brags on his IG about how he can have sex with any girl he wants and buy whatever he likes while jet setting in private jets.